You've probably heard of NDAs or non-disclosure agreements before. Non-disclosure agreements are contractual agreements between two parties. In my life, normally between a brand and myself, an agency and myself, or a production company and myself. This agreement basically states that I won't disclose any information about a job, the happenings, the whereabouts, the who's, and the trade secrets. Which, when you run a small YouTube channel discussing the ins and outs behind the scenes of the commercial world, it can make things a little bit tricky when these NDAs are in place. And as my career progresses and the jobs grow, there are more and more of these NDAs that I have to sign. 2 out of the 3 biggest campaigns that I worked on last year were heavily NDA'd. But then the other day I thought, wait a minute, I can still tell you the cold hard facts about each job as long as I don't disclose what the job is and who was working on it and what it was about. So visually, this video might be a bit different, a couple of worlds away from my usual content, but I want to tell you everything I can about the 2 largest campaigns that I worked on last year. On this first job, it's f***ing stupid. On this first job, I was playing a smaller self-shooting director role as a small part of a larger campaign for a global fashion brand. A series of ads with a load of large name talent shooting all over the world with millions and millions of pounds, dollars and euros going on the cumulative production costs and talent fees. I'd never actually worked with this client, agency or production company before, but someone, I never actually found out who, had recommended me and my work to the agency. And if you were kind of thinking, what the hell is Scott doing? I'm trying to make this visually interesting by being secretive, and this is me hiding, which is kind of secretive because non-disclosure agreement, if you didn't get that. They got in touch asking for examples of certain jobs I'd directed specific to what they wanted for this campaign. They gave me some vague details, asked me for rates, to which I quoted probably too modestly / competitively, as when it was first offered to me, it was just the 2 days filming on the other side of the world, in a place I'd never been and really wanted to visit. So I thought I could use this job as an opportunity to see this place. So I really wanted to win it. When I first met with the agency, I dialed in remotely over Zoom. There was about 9 of them in the room in person together, and they made a presentation to me with loads of my work gift up. It's worth mentioning at this point that they were seemingly trialling me on this first shoot, before later revealing that they wanted me to do the rest of the campaign too. Pre-production didn't really involve much. I think I had 1 or 2 follow-up meetings after that first call to talk creative, neither of which could have lasted more than half an hour or so. I discussed kit with the producer. They wanted me to shoot more run and gun, as didn't want to give me more than a sound op to work with on location in order to keep a small footprint and keep it feeling social and a little lo-fi. So I took the most basic of setups with my S1H kit and 2 lenses, along with a series of mixed media enabling cameras. We talked about the post-production, and they asked me if I'd be interested in taking that on too. A Scott Peters classic, which I don't love to do. But do I really trust anyone else other than myself with these shoot a bunch of shit and try and make it work in the edit type jobs? Probably not. Or maybe I just haven't met the right editor yet that I would fully trust handing it over to. You're such a control freak. Yeah, maybe. So I said yes to taking on the edits myself, which financially ended up working out way better for me in the long run. What can I tell you about the production? I was treated really well. Cars booked, travel business class everywhere, stayed in nice hotels, taken out for nice dinners with the agency, was greeted with welcome care packages of alcohol, tote bags and local delicacies from all the local service companies. A service company, if you didn't know, is basically a local production company in that area or country that services the production company who has won the job. They have all the local contacts, knowledge, info and deals, but they also, just like the main production company, put a 20% markup on everything. So the budget gets stretched even thinner. I had to sit in some intimidatingly large, to what I'm used to, pre-production meetings. Ones with 40 or so people in the room that I'm meeting for the very first time, and had to talk everyone through my part of the shoot, which was terrifying.
At the same time of having pressure to get the job done, I also felt less pressure because my job wasn't the main part of the campaign. I didn't have a crew of 50 to 60 people working under me, and time and schedule was dictated by the enormous celebrity talent we were working with in each country. I had to be flexible, prepared, and work around everyone else. I was talked to like by an older English first AD on the set of the first shoot, But aside from that, everyone was generally really pleasant and enjoyable to work with. I met some really lovely people along the way and spent plenty of time in some parts of the world that I'd not yet seen before, which is always a big plus on travel jobs.
On this job, which was essentially a self-shooting content job, where I spent 6 days traveling and 5 days total shooting, I earned £12,186 as a self-shooting director. I then ended up earning a further £21,000 for the edits and post work, which honestly can't have ended up being much more than 15 days total if you were to put all my hours together. But the work was sporadic and spread out. Even so, they would have still paid me a hell of a lot less than they would have been paying a post house. So a total of £33,186 for this first NDA job, in which I was treated, with the exception of one first AD and some particularly nasty talent management, really well.
Job 2 was for an automotive brand. It was just a one-day shoot, and I was meant to be just directing, but I did end up actually operating one of the 3 cameras on the day. But for the purpose of this, we can forget that. There was an enormous cast, but fortunately no named talent, so there were no egos or schedule conflicts that we were going to have to deal with. The only thing we really had to rely on was the weather. Good weather, because we were shooting outside. This one came from a pre-existing relationship with a production company that I've worked with a few times before. And we'd also done a job that wasn't a million miles away from this in terms of similarity. So they wanted to put me forward along with 2 other directors. I was then invited to treat on the job, told up front that it was going to be a small-ish fee for a buyout as a director of $2,500. So the treatment would only need to be a few pages.
After I had won the job, the couple of page treatment was asked for some expansion. It became more like 11 pages, going into more detail, talking about the edits, the sound design, the way we'd shoot it. All of the classic treatment type stuff that, if you're not in the know about, can learn all about by watching this video here. After you finish watching this video, of course. I'll leave a link in the description as well. I then had a Zoom meeting with the agency. Then I was asked to go in for a meeting with the client and agency in person. I think this was maybe one of the first in-person meetings that I'd had that didn't take place over Zoom since the pandemic. I did question the producer. I thought the small-ish fee on this meant I wasn't going to have to do too much extracurricular involvement up front. An in-person meeting, even if it's only an hour or 2, basically wipes out half my day. And trying not to sound like a massive but I'm a busy dude. I know, they responded, but the client are being insistent. Just one meeting. Okay, sure, no problem, I'll make it work. But then, as is often the case in lower budget jobs, the agency and client start talking about it like it's not a lower budget job. I mean, overall it's costing them a lot of money, yes, but it's not costing them the kind of money for the kind of service they were expecting from both the production company and from the director, me. Then I ended up on a recce, taking up another half day or more of my time, but one that I do enthusiastically, because despite my shrinking rate of compensation, recce days are invaluable. But then I get asked for more pages of info to be added to the treatment, shot examples, camera plans, and they want me to come in person for another meeting again, for not just a 2-hour PPM, but also a pre-PPM the week before. I hope I didn't sound like too much of a when I said to the producer, I'm sorry, but I need to put my foot down somewhere. We're shooting on a weekend. I've already given this 4 days or more of my life, and now they want more for a $2,500 fee? Let me come back to you. We've got sign off to up your fee to $4,500. Awesome. Amazing. Thanks so much. Want any more pages adding to treatment V4? At the end of pre-production, I'd had around 7 or 8 different meetings about this job. 3 half days spent on the in-person ones, a much needed recce day, and a trip to a kit house to pick up a speciality piece of kit we needed that I had volunteered to do so, as it was kind of en route to where I was staying the night before the shoot. The shoot day was pretty perfect condition-wise, which was very lucky in a country like England, as we were shooting outside and it really relied on us having not bad weather. I was up and out the door at 4 a.m. and until a week before the shoot, I had scheduled to be wrapping at 8 p.m. in order to shoot this singular shot at sunset. But when I'd been sent travel options for another job that I already had booked in and was traveling to that night for the next day, I'd learned that it was going to be impossible for me to make the last flight in time if I left the location that late.
So as it was just the one shot, I had spoken to one of the producers about getting it without me, as there was no talent at this point. And it was pretty simple. If I just explained clearly
what was needed from the shot. Luckily, they said yes, because client and agency would be long gone by that point, and a potential logistical nightmare was avoided. We had a small crew on this one. No lighting or grip, just a producer, well, technically kind of 2 producers, production manager, director, cinematographer, a secondary camera operator, a camera assistant, a runner, and a crowd director, because I think we had somewhere in the region of 100 extras and 8 on-camera cast, as well as a ton of agency and client, 9 of them total.
It was a physically exhausting day, but it went as well as the budgetary conditions allowed us. We actually all ended up wrapping a little before 4 p.m, and I made it to my next job safe and sound. After the job, my hands were off the edit, but I did spend a voluntary afternoon in the post house after the first round to try and put my stamp on it. But past that, countless revisions and amendments by agency and client that are not really worth the battle for when you're not actually battling it out for a real piece. And this was never going to be that. So I let them get on until the client was happy, and rode off into the sunset.
So yeah, I ended up with a 4.5K director's fee, which on the books say I got a day rate of 4.5 grand. But as I've shared with you, it was a lot more than just the one day's work. However,
something pretty cool happened. The client loved the film so much that they decided they wanted to run it as an ad on TV for a few months. And despite me never issuing my own contracts, the production company and agency I was working with on this one are what I'd like to call proper ones. People who do it by the book. So usage rights were all detailed in contracts. And when the request to make this an ad came through, I got an uplift fee. Didn't have to ask for it. Would have never even known about it because I don't watch TV. But I got an email alerting me to this and asking me for another invoice, this time for an additional 2.5 grand. So I actually got paid 7 grand for this job. Still, my current highest day rate to date. I hope this video, something a little bit different to my normal content, is helpful in shedding some light on those sorts of jobs that I can't normally tell you anything about, but at least you kind of get the nuts and bolts of it. For more behind the scenes info on commercial work, you should watch this video next, and make sure to subscribe for more semi-helpful tips and interesting insider industry knowledge.